Hey everyone, welcome back to the It's a Mind Game podcast. My name is Jade. I'm a personal trainer and mindset coach specializing in female specific training protocols and HA and ED recovery. Today, if you can probably hear my huge smile through my voice, I'm so very excited to be welcoming back Kristen, who actually joined us back in January with her HA recovery journey. And now she's here joining us at 36 weeks pregnant, which is incredible. So welcome, Kristen.
Thank you so much for having me, Jade. I'm so grateful to be here.
I've been looking forward to this day all week, and for one, to catch up with you because it feels like a little bit of time since we've had a chat. If you haven't already listened to the previous episode with Kristen, definitely dive back into that. But she was one of our wonderful women in the HA community with both Claudia and I. And in that time, we covered a lot of bases on mindset, on nutrition, on exercise, and you had come such a long way, which obviously led to your period coming back. What was the time frame in between that first bleed happening and you falling pregnant?
Yes. So I actually, there was about 2 months in between when I first got my period back in December of 2022, and then finding out that we were pregnant in early February. So it happened really fast. But to be honest, that was like the main driving factor behind recovery. And also, I pretty much immediately started tracking ovulation, and we were timing timing everything out. So yeah, just about 2 months.
Now, super common when in HA recovery, we have that like, what if I don't recover? What if it's not me? What if it's never going to happen? And we have all that self doubt. And then let's say we get the first period, sometimes it can then lead into, oh, now I've got to fall pregnant. Did you have thoughts like that as well? Or were you quite optimistic with, I'm going to get my period back, it's going to be great. And then when I fall pregnant, it's going to be great. What was your perception of those two big challenges for you?
Yeah, I definitely went into it kind of worried that, I would have gained the weight and done this time off from the gym and lost some of my fitness for nothing. I was definitely concerned that I wouldn't get pregnant right away, or that I maybe even wouldn't get pregnant at all. And to be honest with you, we really wanted to make sure we were covering our bases. So my husband even went and got his sperm tested with like a clinic just to make sure that everything was okay. And some of his results came back as sort of less than optimal. So that also had me anxious, but this is just a PSA to anyone listening. If that does happen to you, you can definitely still get pregnant. Even with those types of results and even with those worries kind of in the back of your mind.
Yeah, and thank you for bringing that up as well, because I think when we're talking about fertility and infertility, there tends to be a huge focus on females. Like there's something with our
Yeah.
reproductive system, or it's our ovulation, or da 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 da. And obviously, there's optimal, less than optimal, possible, impossible, those kind of boundaries. But also knowing that it is two of us in a pair trying to create this beautiful human life, and that it is really, really helpful to cover both bases and make sure that your partner's in a good position to have like create a baby with you, as well as just sort of thinking it's all me, because that's something that does pop up quite frequently, whether it be like sperm counts um, or just different kinds of areas. And like you said, kind of like HA, you fix some environmental factors and the body responds so beautifully. But when you found out that news, what I guess was your initial thoughts? Because you sort of had some doubts anyway due to the HA side of things. And I guess in line with that, how did you feel when you saw that positive pregnancy test?
So many emotions. Yeah, when we first found out about the sperm analysis, that was kind of discouraging, but at the same time, it wasn't it didn't deter us from just starting, because we just wanted to start and just see, we I was still so excited that I had my period in the first place. So we got those sperm analysis results in, I think, January, and we had already like tried for that first round, and we're like, okay, we're just, gonna keep trying while we're kind of deciding what to do. And so we were, I guess we were just uh, faithful in the act. And then the next month, it was a positive, and that I remember that moment so well because I was actually I was getting ready to go to the gym after work, and I was like talking to myself kind of in my head and saying, giving myself a pep talk. And I was trying to ease back into my workouts from recovery and still keep things really mild. But I'm on my way out the door to go to the gym, and I went to the bathroom and took the test, and was just absolutely elated and crying. And there was no way that I could keep it from my husband. Like, I know some women like to do some sort of special reveal, but I just came out of the bathroom crying and
Exploding.
told him right away. Yeah.
That's the best. I love it. No,
Yeah.
because it's so surprising and overwhelming especially when it happens that fast. Because obviously there was an inkling that you could be pregnant, hence why you bought the test in the first place. But
Yes.
when you actually see the lines, it's so different again. I was much the same with my pregnancy with Cosima, that I guess I was kind of different in the way that, kind of like how you described, I was still celebrating the fact I got my period back. So I knew I wanted to have a child, but I was still like, let's just, you worked really hard for this. Let's just make sure it comes back again. And then
Yeah.
I had the awareness of ovulation. So obviously we happened to get the timing right, but without like a whole lot of influence, if you know what I mean. There was like a good idea, but not like measuring everything to a T.
Sure.
But I remember that feeling, like when I saw those two lines, and 50% of me was like, I knew it, because I felt a bit funny. But then the other
Mm,
50% was like, no freaking way. Like, there is no way this has just happened, because after this whole year and everything that's happened and all the ththings I told myself that weren't true, like, we're actually here, and I've got this stick in my hand and it's telling me I'm pregnant. It will forever be like a benchmark occasion in my lifeline, because it was just so unreal, and so many intense emotions.
yeah. Yeah, I remember I took the one test that was the one that had me crying and telling my husband, and then I took another test immediately after because usually,
As you
they
do.
come in
Yeah.
pairs. And then the next day I took one just to make sure.
Yeah. I've still got my box of like pregnancy tests for Cosima. And even when I fell pregnant with this one as well, I don't think I took as many, but I still gave it a solid like week of you can't help
Yeah,
it.
yeah, yep.
But no, it's so special, and so it's such a testimony to what our bodies can do when we provide a good environment for it.
Mm,
Now, obviously,
yeah,
so
yeah.
many body changes have happened throughout your pregnancy. Body changes happen throughout HA. Do you feel like the HA recovery process put you in a better position to absorb the changes that have occurred throughout your pregnancy? Or do you feel like there's still certain things that come up for you that you're constantly sort of working on, or consciously managing is probably a better way?
Yeah. For me, it's definitely a little bit of both. I have had moments in my pregnancy where I have felt so beautiful, maybe for lack of a better word, so capable and strong in a sense that I could never describe before this pregnancy. But I've also definitely had moments of struggle still that I think will probably just be um, an ongoing uh, struggle in my life that I will repeatedly have to come up against. But I think that's a worthy fight for sure. I think there's so many obvious bodily changes in pregnancy. And where I'm at now in the third trimester, it's very obvious that I'm pregnant.
Mhm.
So I have a bit of an easier time dealing with those physical changes. But I will say that early on in the first trimester, when I was kind of bloated and I was nauseous a lot, and the only thing that really helped me was to like nibble on little crackers or like snacks to kind of keep the nausea at bay. And so
Mm.
I definitely felt like, oh, my eating is poor, my eating habits are off. So there was a lot of, I would say, a lot of like body checking and kind of unhealthy habits
Mhm.
in that sense in the beginning. But I will say that once you start looking pregnant, or once you pop, which, can be different for every woman and maybe different for every pregnancy, even, that for me was a really big turning point, because
Mm.
I just felt so beautiful, and I felt so proud of what my body was doing and is doing.
Yeah, absolutely. And it really is challenging that first trimester, especially when you're still in, I guess, early days of navigating your thoughts and opinions on food rules and how you want to eat. And especially you found out you're pregnant, you've got this intention of I gotta eat as well as I can to support this baby, and there's a bit of pressure there.
Mm,
And then all of a sudden your body
yeah.
goes, I have other plans. We are not eating chicken. We are not eating salad. If you show me a broccoli, I'm going to make you throw up. Um, and your logical
Yes.
side is like, please, come on, I need some color. Like, give me some nutrition. But your body just, it will not comply. I had a similar
Mm,
experience to you where that first trimester, both pregnancies, was very much dry crackers, rice cakes, bread. I don't often actually, you know what? I don't eat like salty chips unless I'm
mhm,
pregnant. But that first, I needed salt and I just needed bland at the same time. And
mm,
it is challenging because you've got this backing of what foods are really good for you and what's good for your hormones and your endocrine system and cardiovascular system and all this kind of evidence. And then you're sitting there in survival mode, because that's probably the best way to describe the first trimester when you're dealing with nausea. Is it's just how can I minimize this sensation. And I'm going into a little
yes.
bit more detail with it in case someone's either in the first trimester now, perhaps feeling a little bit guilty over living off crackers, or if you happen to get pregnant and this happens to you and you're worrying about it, is that first trimester is so survival mode. And if you have to live off crackers because that is what keeps you optimal, then you do the best that you can and you live off crackers and electrolyte icy poles and all of the things that hold low nutritional content but get you through. How did your eating behaviors change as you've evolved through the trimesters?
Mm. So to just totally echo what you just said, I could not eat like any salad or anything green, any vegetables in the
Mm-hmm.
first trimester. And if you would have told me that before I got pregnant, I would have been like, no, 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 that's crazy.
Please.
Because even in, yeah, I mean, I loved salad when I had HA, don't get me wrong. But even in recovery, I loved a good salad with like a full fat dressing and croutons. Like I just like salad with all the stuff on it. And then, yeah, that first trimester, it literally made me like more nauseous. And also meat, like I think you
Mm-hmm.
mentioned chicken, or just like the texture of some meat really bothered me. And again, I never would have thought pre-pregnancy that that would be me, but you just go through these hormonal changes, and it did shift for me eventually. At some point, probably in the mid second trimester, my nausea died down, and I was able to kind of eat
Mm-hmm.
some more color, like you said, some bell peppers or some tomatoes and cucumbers and more veggies, which did make me feel better. And of course, in pregnancy, it's important to take your prenatal vitamins, so you do kind of have that backup. If you feel like you're not getting super nutritious food, you do take the vitamins too. um, and then also I would add to that too, I was really having a lot of cravings for like sweet things or carby things. And those
Mm.
were a lot of my former fear foods from HA and even a little bit from recovery. But in pregnancy, I allowed myself to eat those things. And sometimes, like you said, it's just a matter of survival. And that's like
Mhm.
what you have maybe as a snack, and it's not the most nutritious thing, but um, it's also going to pass. Like it's not a permanent state. So it's really kind of feels like a trust fall, because you're thinking, oh, I'm not eating right at all. Is this baby going to be okay? And then you will kind of come out of it. So where I'm at now, pretty close to the end, I would say I'm eating pretty much like normally how I would pre-pregnancy. So I'm eating a lot of different things and I don't really have the nausea anymore. So it's definitely been a wild ride.
Yeah, absolutely. And I really liked how you described like it is another chapter because the same is for HA recovery. It's remembering that whatever you need to do to recover your period, it's just for that stage. And then you can start making
Yeah.
changes again and find a new comfortable balance. And then you enter pregnancy. And again, it's just for this timeline where perhaps your food will change a little bit or your exercise will change a little bit. And then motherhood kicks in and you'll do the same thing again. You'll find just what's suitable for this chapter and then you'll move on to the next one. And sometimes I think it can provide a bit of relief if we stop looking at everything as a forever after and instead sort of looking at it just for
Yeah.
today. I will take whatever actions that gets me through the day as best as possible, knowing that that could
Yeah.
change tomorrow or the day after. um,
Yeah.
with your pregnancy cravings, did you find sometimes it was a little bit healing in the way that your body was so, I guess, detailed with what it wanted? Like, let's say if you wanted something carb dense and you're out of the first trimester, it's not just cracker land. Perhaps, potatoes, sweet potatoes, rice, but you were so in tune with what exactly you needed in the moment versus perhaps HA recovery, where there was this back and forth of I should have carbohydrates, but I don't really want to. Did you notice there was a difference in not so much a hunger cue, but just that intuition of what your body needs right now from HA, where it was more like tick box, to pregnancy, where the message is loud and clear?
Yeah, that's a great way to put it. You kind of have this like biological directional system that your body is just like telling you exactly what it wants and what it needs. And when you trust that, then you are satisfied after you fulfill that craving or that need. And I like to think that, I've improved the trust relationship with my body. And, um, in HA recovery, we talk about like listening to your hunger cues, and you might feel like you have extreme hunger for a period of time, but you have to kind of uh, give into that a little bit before you can come out the other side. And I feel like in pregnancy, it's been the same way for me, where I don't have to be as restrictive. I can just listen and then nourish accordingly. And also just remembering that I'm responsible for the life that's growing inside of me too. And um, that's been so critical to uh, guiding what I eat, and even when I eat, having snacks when before maybe I thought I shouldn't have had snacks. But your body's doing a lot in pregnancy, and you're going to rest a lot more than you think you normally would, and you're probably going to eat a lot more at certain points than you think you normally would.
Did you find your appetite had waves at certain times where there was moments where, let's say, you were very comfortable with your hunger, like it was nothing that made you go, "Oh gosh, is that a little bit too much today?" Or, "Oh, maybe I haven't eaten enough." But then you might have had a week where you were just ravenous. And just to what you said about I'm responsible for my body and this body growing inside of me now. I need to be conscious of what's going on and make good choices. But did you notice waves in your appetite where some days like you didn't really think anything of it? You just ate whatever your body cued you to. But then other days you're like, oh wow, like this is a bottomless pit.
Yeah, for sure. For me, that those waves kind of started in the second trimester. And I think, at least this is my experience, part of that is because as your as your belly grows and kind of takes up more space, I don't know how it works exactly, but it feels like your organs are kind of being pushed up, and you might have times where you eat a little bit of a meal and all of a sudden you're really full. And that's also kind of alarming because, again, coming from
Mm-hmm.
an HA background, you're like, oh my gosh, I didn't eat enough this time, or like, this is so alarming that I'm full on like 3 bites of a little
Mm-hmm.
meal. But then, like you said, the opposite will happen where you're just ravenous for a couple of days or something like that. And it can feel a little bit scary to navigate that. but I think based on what I've read and what I've kind of heard from other women is that that's normal and it's okay. And in the third trimester, you have at some point the baby will drop and then you kind of have a little bit more breathing room and maybe a little bit more you can feel like you can eat a little bit more and not be as full right away. So you might have to, like for me, I've kind of shifted my eating strategy. Like sometimes it was many small meals throughout the day. Whereas I would normally think like, oh, I can only have breakfast, lunch, and dinner, like my food rules or the voice in my head would say that. But um, the freedom to and the flexibility to decide, oh, I'm going to have maybe 5 or 6 small meals today. And that's just what feels good to me. And then maybe next time I'm super hungry and I'm just going to eat larger meals, but they'll be spread apart. So it's definitely a lesson in just like listening to what you think your body needs.
I'm so proud of you. Everything about what you just said, then I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm so proud of her. I could cry. No, because what you said there was just like, it's okay to have a strategy, and it's okay to have that strategy complement however you feel on that day, right? Which is the epitome of intuitive eating. That's just you going by, okay, well, what is my best option for me in this moment, right? It's not a strategy that you have to uphold for the next 6 weeks or 12 weeks, or it's like, no, I care enough about my nutrition that I still want to have a plan, but not to the point where I'm shackling myself to this plan, right? Which is
Mm,
just a beautiful relationship to have with food. And I really hope it's one that carries on once baby's here, where you can go, you know what, there's some days where I do need 6 small meals. And there's some days where perhaps I don't have time to prep 6 small meals. So I'm just going to have 3 big ones. And that, that'll do, because that also takes
yeah,
so much pressure off when you're going to be so busy doing so many other things once baby's here.
yeah, yeah.
Now, you mentioned as well that the body changes. There's times where you can embrace them, there's other times where they kind of challenge you a little bit. And that could be something that carries on for quite some time, indefinitely, short term, who knows. What are some of the tools you find most helpful if you're to have a more challenging body image day?
Mm. I think focusing on what my body can do for me, sort of practically instead of how I appear aesthetically, if that makes sense. So, like, for example, I may feel down because I've gone up a couple pounds or whatever. And in pregnancy, in case you don't know, if you're listening, you will be weighed a lot frequently at your doctor's office. So if you don't want to see that information, you can tell them. But if you are going maybe the route where you do want to see it, which is the route that I'm choosing, I'm trying to like get myself to be okay with those numbers going up. And on those occasions where the numbers go up and I feel like my instinct is to be critical or like I'm worth less, it helps me to focus on like, look at what your body is doing. Your body is growing a human, and on top of that, you are. I'm still working full time. I have a brain that's strong and functioning and keeping me afloat at work, and I'm also able to be healthy enough to go grocery shopping, do some light chores around the house. I'm thankful that I've had an uncomplicated pregnancy and a healthy pregnancy. And so I try to focus on those points because it's still very easy for me to revert back to the negative mindset of like any increase in weight is means I'm doing something wrong or means I'm worth less. But in reality, in pregnancy, it's kind of this your brain is a little twisted because you should be increasing in weight because that's your baby growing. And especially in the second and third trimester, there's, a recommended weight gain. And if you don't quite meet that, then your doctor might say, hey, you need to pick up the pace a little bit. We want to make sure
Mm.
you have some extra padding. So yeah, I think focusing on what my body has been doing this pregnancy is helpful on those challenging days. And there are also days where I just like, I'm really tired and I don't get a chance to get up off the couch. And in that case, too, you really have to practice self compassion. And one way that I do that is I think about, like in my case, I'm having a daughter, and I think about the example that I want to set for her when she's born. And I don't want to have this deeply entrenched thought pattern that's like overly critical of my body and my appearance. I want to model for my daughter what it looks like to be uh, free and unrestricted in my eating and my exercise. So that's also a really big motivating factor.
Yeah, that's so powerful. And again, just how you're absorbing whatever your body needs. If it needs exercise, you're going out and exercising. If it needs rest, you're having some chill time on the couch. And even when you look at the final weeks of pregnancy, you really want to go into labor knowing that you feel really good versus perhaps an attitude that might face some women might face, sorry, which is like they're still trying to get in as much exercise as possible. And even though that might not be, what they used to do, but just, I'm really, really tired. I probably would benefit from a 20-minute nap, but no, I've got to do 20 minutes of a walk or weights. And I guess alluding back to what we were talking about earlier with the different seasons or the different chapters that we're in, now is a really good time to honor what your body needs right now, because the next chapter, you might not always be able to give it what it needs because you've got this tiny little
Mhm.
human that you're going to be caring for. So I really celebrate you for actually taking the opportunity to move when it feels appropriate, to rest when it feels appropriate, and again to nourish when it feels appropriate, because you truly are doing the best thing you can for both yourself and baby with all of those decisions.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. And I think too, like just in pregnancy, there have also been times where I have felt like, to me it's so unlike me to not want to move. Like on the days where I feel that my energy is completely drained and I'm like thinking to myself, something's wrong with me. Like
Yeah,
I don't
what
want to
is
go to the
this?
gym.
Yeah,
Yeah. But it's
I'm
like,
not sad, but why don't I want to go?
exactly, exactly. And that's like something that, maybe people who are in HA recovery can relate to that, but it's like you so associate the movement or training or whatever with your identity that you're like, oh, something's off here, that I'm not wanting to like do
Mhm.
these things. But I think that in pregnancy, like the importance of moving just completely devoid of any aesthetic goals. Like you're just moving for general health and well-being. Like you're not going to make
Absolutely.
any
Yeah.
strength gains in pregnancy. You're just like doing what you can to stay, keep the joints moving and keep the blood flowing. And I think that's like been a really powerful point too, because sometimes you just, move because you need to, and it can be light and enjoyable, and that's enough.
Mhm. Yeah, thank you for bringing that up, because, like you said, when training while pregnant, it very much is to keep your body conditioned. It's not a time to be your best ever self. And don't get me wrong, some women can have that experience if they've gone from not exercising to exercising. So it's not a one size fits all, but particularly if you've had HA before, your prime, let's say, can tend to be quite excessive. So it's not a time to be doing all that. But that being said, honoring movement is still such a critical part. And I really enjoyed the language that you used, which is you're going there kind of for pleasure. It's like, you want to challenge your body a little bit, but you want to go in there feeling good. You want to leave there feeling good, rather than, oh my gosh, I'm exhausted, because that's another thing
Mm.
that you might not anticipate until you're actually living it, is you might get through the workout and feel really, really good and push a bit harder than you thought and be like, oh, wow, I can be a weapon while I'm pregnant. This is sick. And then all of a sudden, 10 minutes later, you're like, oh my God, I must sleep. Like, I am so, like, it kicks your butt. And then you start to have that conversation with, okay, well, that felt really good in the moment, but I've got to go to work, or I've got to chase after a toddler, or I can't be doing these workouts all the time because it ruins me for the day. Did you ever have those
Yeah.
experiences where in the moment you're like, yes, I'm a legend, women are the best, I can do it all, and then you've just gone crash?
Yeah, for sure, for sure. I think especially at the beginning, I was because in the beginning you don't look pregnant.
Mhm.
Maybe you don't have a belly right away, but you're thinking like, oh yeah, I'm gonna be like this super fit pregnant woman,
Oh,
like I'm gonna be
yeah.
amazing. And you can't, you will have bursts of energy for sure. But I just remember particularly in the first trimester, the exhaustion would hit me in moments that I wasn't expecting. And then I would be like mad at myself or discouraged because I'm like, oh, I don't even have a belly yet. Like, why am I so tired? And it's like, that has nothing to do with
There
it.
is
It's
no
actually
measurement
just like,
there. Yes.
yeah, it's like hormonal and everything
Oh, we can,
your womb is doing to just prep for all the
yeah.
growth that's happening.
Actually, I'll touch on one last thing before we finish up because I feel like this time is just flying by so quickly. But I know for me, I find the first trimester quite challenging, one, because of all the nausea and the fatigue, but also when you don't look pregnant, but you don't look that fit either. And I know that's very dangerous
Mm,
territory with language, but as everyone knows, I
mm,
love training. I love eating well. Like it's still a big part of my identity. It just doesn't rule my identity. Right. So there's a big difference between incorporating it in your identity and it being your only element. So for me, it was like, there's still a particular way I like to look, but it's not something that's detrimental to my health. But in that first trimester, even part of the second trimester, you are challenged with this perception of, I don't officially look pregnant yet, but I'm also not upholding how I like to present myself. And it's very much a personal pride thing. It's not showing up for anybody else. It's me. It's what makes me feel good. And in those weeks, I find them the most challenging mentally because I'm trying to balance between, yeah, just keep doing what you're doing. Your belly will pop when it's ready. And there's actually nothing I can do about the fact of how I look right now. Like my body's in transition and okay, it's
mm.
not how you feel comfortable, but it's also not going to last forever. And also, as we commonly know, is that no one's actually looking as much as we're looking. To us, it's like, oh my gosh, can they tell? Am I bloated all the time? Do they think, all that sort of dialogue? And I say this in details because I want them to understand that you can do all the work in the world and these things still pop up. Like, I feel like quite confident with how I manage my body image. And in those moments, I'm happy with how I navigated them, but they still showed up. And I think that's a very human experience, regardless of
Mm,
age, HA or not, eating disorder or not. It's just,
yeah.
it's a human experience. Did you have that?
Yeah, I totally resonate with that. I think that for me, in the first trimester, because I was having so much exhaustion and nausea, I honestly, I totally paused going to the gym. Wasn't doing any formal sort of
I took
workouts.
8 weeks off.
Yeah, I would
Done.
walk, and even
Mm,
sometimes walking would be challenging. But yeah, before you really look pregnant, it's so difficult because I'm right there with you. I have a certain way that I would like to eat and train and just in a healthful, mindful
mhm,
way manage what I look like to a degree. But you kind of have to let go of that for a period. And something that helped me too, and also just in general pregnancy, dressing appropriately for your changing body. And
mhm.
this is applicable to HA recovery too, I think. But
Absolutely.
like, there might be a certain brand of maternity clothes that you like, and you don't be afraid to like try maternity clothes even before your belly has popped, because
Mhm,
sometimes you're going to feel a little bit bloated or a little bit funky. And it's like, wearing stuff that fits can go such a long way. At least for me, I found when I had those bad body image days early on, or I felt just out of sorts, like I was wearing they weren't like the full on maternity jeans, but like the extra stretchy
stretchy. Mhm.
ones. Yeah. Or like just size up in your leggings. Like no one's going to know. It doesn't matter. And it'll just make you feel more comfortable. And I think that's a small way to help navigate it, but it is definitely challenging. And to any degree that you can do, like journaling or talking to a therapist or your partner or someone that you trust, like it will pass, but it kind of
Mm.
stinks in the moment.
Yeah, and you're right. It's actually so powerful to make sure you're wearing clothes that fit you well or are comfortable. Because I think
Yeah.
one thing we can oversee with that, like I want to wear what I normally wear for as long as I can, because perhaps I don't want to spend the money. Perhaps it's not a good time to be changing my wardrobe. There's so many reasons, but why it can be so critical to even just have 2 or 3 items of clothing that when you put on, you're kind of at peace with yourself, is because when you can feel, say, the waist of your pants cinching in, when you can feel maybe the armpits are a bit firm, maybe when you can feel um, any kind of restriction in your clothing, especially when you're feeling vulnerable, you've got this little voice all day going, can you feel that? Can you feel that? Do you know it's there? You got bigger. Did you know you got bigger? And it's
Yeah.
just commentary that we don't need. And it's purely coming from that trigger. So you remove the trigger by wearing the stretchy jeans, by leveling up your leggings, by wearing the flowy maternity top. And you
Yes.
would be
Hmm.
surprised how much that little voice going, hey, did you know it's happening? It's happening. Everyone can tell. It actually, it might not completely go, but it's reduced dramatically. Like you will have a good day. You might not even think about it
Yes.
twice, other than when you got dressed and went, oh gosh, I'm in the stretchy pants. And then, but that's it. Did you notice that as well? You went from being like really critical all day to the point where it's probably exhausting. So you've got other things you could be thinking about, to just, oh, I'm going to own it. I'm going to wear what's comfortable. And then it's kind of it. Like, you don't need to think about it anymore.
Yes, yes, that is so true. I love what you said about wearing like the flowy tops and just embracing it, because in my HA and even in recovery at certain points, I had like a very specific style that was like, no, when I go to the gym, I wear like like fitted tank tops, or like
Mm.
these specific types of biker shorts. And that's not to say you can't eventually be comfortable in those in a bigger body, but if you are not quite ready for that step, just change it up and see what you like. And it might take some adjusting, but you might find that you love the flowy tops or the swishy shorts or something like that. And eventually, I think the goal is that you can get to a place where you can say, oh, wow, I don't need that smaller body to feel like I had a good workout, or I can
Mm.
feel, joy and pleasure and connection. Like pregnancy is proof that you don't need to have a smaller body to have all of those things. But if you
Yeah.
need like the stepping stones to get there, like that's totally normal. And I definitely needed that.
Yeah, I was kind of giggling and smiling when you said that, because I remember, especially with Cosima, that just that thought of like, my God, I'm the biggest I have ever been. And
Yeah.
I feel so, and I know it's like a pregnancy weight. So, because some might be going, yeah, but it's a loophole because it's pregnant. And yes, there is definitely a loophole because you are pregnant. Yes, I agree with
Mhm.
you. But at the same time, I weighed myself regularly both pregnancies, and I'm watching these numbers creep up, mainly because I wanted to train myself to be okay with the numbers, because it was the only opportunity I was going to be this heavy. So I'm like, let's just
Yep. Yep.
officially break the whole fear of any kind of number. And once you've seen it, it's actually not as bad as what you think. Um, but I remember having a few moments, I'm like, oh my gosh, like I am everything I'm so terrified of. And I'm so happy. Like, I feel
That's
good.
so beautiful. Yeah.
And
Yeah.
it makes
Yeah.
no sense because you go, all these years I had this construct and I'm just like breaking these shackles like every day.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
it's
I love
really
that so
empowering.
much. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think too, like, yes, it is a loophole because it's pregnancy, but also like you don't just gain weight in your belly. Like I've definitely gained, my arms are thicker, my legs are thicker.
Yeah.
I also kind of feel like I have probably more cellulite, which I don't know if that's a hormonal thing or what, but somehow still in spite of that, it's like I guess it's because I went through so much to get here and to be pregnant that I'm so
Mm.
appreciative. And I know how to diet. If I want to diet ever again in my life, I can try it. But right now, I'm just so happy that I am where I am, that
Yeah.
I'm like, it's okay. I'm bigger and it's okay because I'm gonna have a daughter in 3.5 weeks.
Oh my gosh, I'm so excited. And I think that's a wonderful message to finish off the podcast with. I want to thank you so much for just coming on and sharing that transition from HA to pregnancy and all the insights on, the high points and some of the more vulnerable points, because I'm sure it's a conversation that so many of our listeners will find relatable. And I've honestly enjoyed it so much myself, being preggy belly with you at the moment, and just those
Yeah.
yeah, all the ebbs and flows of the experience. But I'm just so happy to be chatting with you, and again, so proud of everything that you've achieved in this short time that we've known each other. And I can't wait to see you holding baby girl in your arms.
Oh, thank you so much, Jade. It's been incredible to know you and work with you, and I wouldn't be here without you. So thank you.
Oh, my absolute pleasure. And ladies, I hope you've enjoyed today's episode. I'm going to leave the links for our original episode in the show notes. But for now, I hope you have a fabulous day, and I'll see you in the next one.